Whenever I discuss this online or teach people who aren't that familiar with meditation, the basics, they often retort with, well, I can't control my thoughts. They just happen. I see something, it makes me angry. Now I'm angry. I can't control that. That's one of the biggest misconceptions and failed understandings about meditation that keeps people held back. Oftentimes, people begin practicing meditation with this misconception, yet it's well established in the meditation literature amongst the great teachers that you can control your thoughts because thoughts are actually a separate process that's independent of your consciousness. And so I'm going to go through the three ways and reasons why you can control your thoughts. For context, the Buddha, speaking to his monks, says that should you be taken by a group of thieves and sawed in half with a two-person saw, then if you should feel any feeling of anger at all, you have not been listening to my teachings. You have not done what I've told you to do. That's a very intense statement, especially because Buddhist monks at the time were wanderers. They would have a robe and maybe one or two extras, a bowl, sandals, and that's pretty much it. That's all they had. Buddhist monks were the epitome of a harmless person. They weren't even allowed to hit back in many circumstances if they were attacked. So clearly, the idea of ruthlessly killing them, cutting them in half, is something that is not deserved. And our rational mind will say, I should feel angry that this is happening. Yet the Buddha very clearly states that this is against his teachings. Now, how is it even possible that that could happen? The first key is that your emotional reactions to some observation are not an intrinsic part of your being and they're not an intrinsic part of your thought. Buddhist scholars have illuminated the exact path that a thought takes. First, it comes in through your sense organs. Then the mind makes sense of what's going on. And lastly, you apply some emotional reaction to it. Imagine, for instance, if you're a kid waking up and you're awake enough to hear voices, but you're not awake enough to know what they're saying. That's basically the first stage. You're getting the input, but you haven't been able to make sense of it. Then, if you see what's going on, I understand the words or I understand the context of what's happening. I see somebody running across the field and I know that's a goal. That is the logical understanding of what's going on, devoid of emotion. For instance, in football or any other sport, the fans can see what's going on generally. They know that a point's been made. The reaction to it, half of the stadium is elated, the other half is dejected. It might be the worst day of their life because of the same exact event. So clearly, your emotional response to event is not dictated solely by the contents of the event. And in fact, people say, well, actually, it makes sense because they're for that other team and the other fans are against that team. And so that's why they feel bad. But they didn't logically come to that conclusion. You may say, well, I didn't want to be treated poorly and somebody made fun of me. And so it's logical because it hurts my income, it hurts my image in front of other people. It makes logical sense that I feel bad. But the thing is, you felt bad before you had time to think of the logical conclusion. You didn't imprint in yourself, I should feel bad in these circumstances because that's logical. In these other circumstances, I shouldn't feel bad. And so then I'll feel bad at those times. No, you felt bad. And then you rationalized the reason why you should feel bad. So these emotional reactions, good and bad, are the consequence of something else. This is generally called the ego or the small self. Initially, for most people, all of the steps happen at a lightning speed. You can't tell the difference. You see it, you immediately know what it is, and then you have an emotional reaction to it. With meditation, especially focus based meditation, dharana or jhana type practices, you slowly train your subconscious mind to separate these out. And just like a trained athlete can do impossible things, like a figure skater can do impossible jumps subconsciously, they're not moving every muscle intentionally. They're not thinking about it. They just have over time trained their body to do that. You're also able to train your subconsciousness to see an event without placing an emotional reaction on it. The second point that's often made in meditative traditions is that the thoughts that come in your head, your reactions to events, are typically conditioned by previous thoughts. They're cyclic. You lay the seeds for your new thoughts by reaping the previous thoughts that happen. And you can see this very clearly if you spend time with an older person, somebody who's really eaten up about their past. They might sit there complaining to themselves about people that don't even live anymore, about things that happened in their elementary school or middle school or high school. I mean, these people are 60, 70 years old and they're complaining about things that happened 40, 50 years ago. That's just nuts, right? But pure evidence of how cyclic thought works. Cyclic thought does not work in your benefit. And in fact, if you write down the thoughts you have most of the time, almost everybody will find that you're thinking about things that might have happened, that did happen in the past, but are not happening now. So in fact, a lot of people's negative thoughts aren't even a direct response to what's happening in their life. They're actually a conditioned cycle that's been built up over time. But lucky for us, just as you can build these cycles, you can destroy them. All you have to do is disrupt the cyclic flow. Again, this is what meditation does. When thoughts come up in meditation, we learn to return our mind back to some other object of meditation. Sometimes we address the thoughts directly. That depends on your tradition. But generally, you're doing something which disrupts the flow of these thoughts. You're not letting them gain the emotional momentum. It's emotions that build up these cycles in your mind. So by withdrawing this emotional fuel, it allows us to end these cycles, to pull away their strength, to slowly let them wind down. Now, it's not going to happen in an instant, but you'll find over repeated practice of meditation that these thoughts come less and with less intensity, less motivation, less draw. With knowledge of these cycles, you can actually do the opposite. And this is what people like Tony Robbins do. They actually intentionally build positive cycles, or at least cycles that have results that are more beneficial to what you're trying to achieve. So instead of saying, okay, can't be successful, the world's against me, the billionaires own everything, and I'm just a worker, but at least I have pride, you can build up the opposite, which is, I do have worth, I'm creative, I can produce things that are unique and different, and I am worth receiving monetary value. I'm worth having a claim. That's not just for the other people, the rich people. That's for everybody. That's for any of us that are willing to go out and take it. And as long as I put in the effort and I'm diligent about providing value to other people, then I will be able to achieve just as other people have achieved. We live in an era of some of the greatest upward mobility ever in history. Like, would you change places with a medieval peon? They had community living, they had good food. Would you do it? No, almost nobody would. That would be crazy. Now is an era of unprecedented prosperity. We're running into a time where we're cutting away the people that aren't doing the right things, and we're moving in a world where we have creators, people that are on an upward spiral, and we have other people that are on a downward spiral. So this is a time to get motivated. This is a time to get out there and do things and to change that cyclic negative mental cycle that you have and build up the positive cycle. Now, the third and last point that I have is that the great teachings tell us, in fact, these thoughts ultimately are not even necessary. Yes, a positive cycle can help you. And in fact, they do teach that if you have negative thoughts, thoughts that draw you down, decrease your energy, these are hatred, these are envy, these are disgust, depression. These type of things can be reverted by inserting the opposite thought. So love, compassion, excitement, creativity. But in the end, both sets of thoughts aren't even necessary. There isn't really a good or a bad if we can find the perfect middle. For somebody who has spent the time and built up their psyche, built up their spiritual ability to where they don't actually need thoughts, they're above all the rest of us. Now, how do you not need thoughts? Most people's experience is that they're constantly thinking, they're constantly getting little thought injections into their brain. But in meditation, and I've seen this firsthand, you can actually have extended periods where there is not a single thought in your head. Now, it's strange because you can actually observe things, you see things, but there's no need to ruminate. There's no words in your mind. And when something comes up, you need to speak, you need to make a decision, you can do it. You immediately go to what you believe, what you think is the right answer. And oftentimes, you get an answer that's better than you could have ever ruminated or logicked your way to. It just comes up, you know the answer, and then you go on not thinking. Till now, this state has been fairly elusive and almost impossible to find among the general population. But I believe, just like athletes have been getting faster and faster over time, I believe that the human mental potential is also increasing, and that we're going to see that this isn't just an extraordinary state, but in fact, it's going to be a mandatory state for those of us who want to be on the leading edge. You will have to develop this in yourself in the coming future to be playing the game and to be on the leading edge of creation. I hope you enjoyed the video today. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.